You always try to be perfect all the time, and just to give yourself the grace to realize that you don't have to be and that you're gonna have issues, it really takes the weight off your shoulders.
I am a perfectionist, and I tell my perfectionist side not to hold back, to own my voice, to share my ideas, and it's not bragging, it's owning the value I bring.
It really is about being comfortable with myself to speak up, say what I want to say it in my own words, and be happy that I was able to be part of a conversation.
Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I am so excited about this conversation. Today's episode is an interview centered around one of my absolute favorite topics, which is building confidence and finding your voice as a leader by strengthening your mindset. Now, one of the big reasons I'm excited is because I have three incredibly inspirational guests coming on the show today. You are going to meet Sarah, Jane, and Colette, who are all alums of my group program, The Art of Speaking Up Academy. If you are newer to the podcast, The Art of Speaking Up Academy is the main way that I work with my clients. It's my signature program where I help my clients build deep inner confidence and learn foundational executive communication skills so that they can develop a more powerful and impactful voice in the room at work. Today's episode is packed with stories and inspiration to help you let go of perfectionism, turn down the pressure that you are putting on yourself, and build confidence from a place of self-compassion, accepting yourself as you are, and finding that leadership style that feels authentic to you. You're also going to receive some tips and advice on how to have more of a leadership energy and presence when you speak, what to do if you're feeling stuck in your career or navigating a lot of self-doubt. And most importantly, I think that the stories and advice that you hear is going to remind you that even if you feel imperfect or messy, and even if you have some big goals for yourself that you haven't yet attained, you've had the capability within you all along, and it's just a question of having the courage to believe that you have that capacity in you and to go out and take some concrete steps to make that growth that you are wanting to experience finally happen. So I'm going to quickly introduce today's guests, and then we're going to get straight into the interview. So you're going to meet Colette, who is an EVP of transportation with over 35 years of experience. She currently leads initiatives related to growth and quality control at a civil engineering firm. You're also going to hear from Sarah, who has a background in engineering and operations with over a decade of experience managing programs, people, and process improvements in the aviation space. And finally, you are going to hear from Jane. Jane is a senior marketing professional with over a decade of experience in the B2B tech industry. She's worked on everything from building brand stories to launching large-scale marketing campaigns. And I want to congratulate Jane because she was recently a finalist for B&T's Women Leading Tech Award in Marketing. Congrats, Jane. That is so exciting. So the first person that you're going to hear from in today's interview is Colette. She is going to be answering the question of what are you most proud of when it comes to your growth and evolution. So let's dive in. Let's meet these women and hear from Colette. And I hope you enjoy this interview.
I feel the most proud of building my own self-confidence. My journey on growth began with a promotion from a management position to an executive leadership position. The leadership position, I got exposed to higher level conversations, talking about business objectives. And so what I ended up doing was I started comparing myself to others, and I saw how good they were. and how they communicated at higher levels. And I started to lose a little bit of that confidence in myself. I wanted to provide input on every topic, and I wasn't knowledgeable on it, and it came across that way. I just ended up having self-doubt. My inner critic kicked in. I just felt like I wasn't qualified to be in the position. Just really lost a lot of my confidence. So I've been working on that. And so what I'm most proud of is to just be a little bit more comfortable that I bring all this experience, over 3 decades of experience, to this position. And so just having a little bit more self-confidence, knowing that I belong in the room and I have a lot to offer.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Colette. And then we're going to go to Sarah next. I'm excited to hear from you, Sarah. So when you think about your growth and evolution, what are you most proud of?
I would say it'd have to be my shift in my mindset. I learned to be more accepting of my emotional reaction as normal. Prior to the academy, whenever something quote unquote negative would happen in my personal or work life, my inner critic would take over and I would get in this really deep swamp of negative feelings and emotions and just be really hard on myself. And now, whenever something like that happens, I stop and I acknowledge my feelings as normal and say, okay, now what am I going to do? And this helps remind me that I am capable, I'm intelligent, and I am really great at what I do. And that emotion I felt was okay. But the goal is to not linger there and make it become an issue for me, which it had in the past. And I just embrace that resilience and then determine what actions I'm going to take next. It makes me feel confident and ready to face whatever challenges that come my way.
Something that I really love about what you shared is you didn't say, I never have a negative experience or I never have a negative emotion. You said, when I have it, I respond differently. And I'm curious how it feels to know that you have that capability to handle something difficult if it comes up.
It's actually really relieving. It's not as exhausting. You always try to be perfect all the time. And just to give yourself the grace to realize that you don't have to be and that you're going to have issues, it really takes the weight off your shoulders.
Celebrating that with you. Jane, let's hear from you. So Jane, when you think about your growth and evolution, what do you feel most proud of?
So over the past 6 months, my biggest growth was mindset as well, and specifically 2 areas. It's controlling my inner critic. I used to fear saying the wrong thing, feeling like my contributions weren't valuable. I'm not articulating it properly, worrying that people were judging me, especially when I was giving a presentation. So it's quieting it down and just not being so harsh on myself. But also it's changing how I show up in meetings as well. It's being ready to show up as a leader in each and every meeting, because I used to sit back, I just listen, I stay passive, and I realized that that behavior no longer serves me, especially where I want to head in my career. And it's really important that I take a seat at the table. And it's something I'm still working on, but I'm proud of the progress. Being able to build that stronger, more positive mindset, that's been a real game changer for me.
I love hearing these. These are making me so happy. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we'll go into the next question. We'll rotate again and go back to Colette, and we're going to talk about limiting beliefs. Have you had any limiting beliefs either about yourself or about what it means to be confident that have shifted?
Oh, my limiting belief for myself when I transferred to this new position was that I'm not good enough. I'm not qualified. I'm never going to get this. But the way I look at it now is that with my old position, I was in it for 15 years, maybe even more. And I just knew it. And that transition, getting a feel for it, it's change, it's hard. But how I address that is just building on that confidence. I am qualified. I know I can do it. And I'm getting my self-doubt under control.
That's such a good example of moving out of a perfectionist mindset, because a perfectionist mindset would say, this should always feel easy. This should always feel the same. And if it doesn't, I have failed. And it's recognizing, no, this is a situation where I'm growing. So it's not supposed to feel the way that my other position felt. Okay. How about you, Sarah? Have you had any limiting beliefs either about yourself or about what it means to be confident that have shifted?
Yes, definitely about myself. I work in an organization where my degree didn't fit the standard expected degree for the role I was in. So I always felt that I was less than, and I felt that I had to be the smartest person to make up for that perceived gap. Since then, my mind has shifted and I do waver at times, don't get me wrong, but now in most cases I realize that my perspective is valuable due to the education difference. And acknowledging this has pushed me to become the leader that I know I am, regardless if I'm, quote, the smartest one in the room. I've noticed that the more I continue to do this, the more my ideas really are great. And I do ask the right questions. And it ultimately has led to better outcomes for myself and for the business. But yeah, getting over that limiting belief definitely was difficult, but I'm pretty excited about where it's leading.
I would be curious to hear more about that excitement when you say I'm pretty excited about where it's leading.
Over the past several months, I've recognized how I'm displaying myself because I don't listen to that limiting belief anymore has led to people looking at me in a different light and looking at me as a leader of the group more so than they have in the past. I take up more space in meetings. I share my comments, and people have started to see me in a different light. And it's sort of scary and exciting all at the same time.
It's so powerful when people respond differently. And that's definitely a theme coming up in what you're sharing is people noticing the change. So I imagine that feels really good. And it's also just really well deserved with everything that you've put into your process. All right, let's hear from you, Jane. So let's hear your thoughts on limiting beliefs, either about yourself or about confidence that have shifted.
Yeah, I think my limiting beliefs has lessened and my confidence has grown over the past few months. For a long time, I identified as a doer, an achiever, the one that gets everything done. But I realized that simply getting things done quickly and, with quality as well, just doesn't necessarily mean you're seen as a leader. And that was my biggest problem. So I've shifted my understanding of what leadership means. It's not about completing tasks. It's about being committed to drive progress in meetings, being able to speak with confidence and authority, addressing conflict collaboratively and bringing people on the same page, and just making decisions that move the business forward. And with this clarity, I now understand why I wasn't seen as a leader. And it's not that I wasn't doing enough. It's I wasn't doing the right things. And I kind of, now know exactly what steps to take to feel equipped to step into leadership. And leadership isn't a one-time thing. It's something you do and something we choose to show up as every day. I also remind myself it's okay to shine. It's time to shine. I am a perfectionist and I tell my perfectionist side not to hold back, to own my voice, to share my ideas. And it's not bragging. It's owning the value I bring.
Oh, that's so powerful. If someone is listening to what you said and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I think that I'm not doing the leadership things, like I'm the one doing all the execution, I'm the one working really hard, but not doing some of these other things, are there one or two tips that you would give to that person to help them shift into more of a leadership way of operating?
Yeah, it's very difficult. You're often stuck in that doer for so long until you change your mindset to understand what does leadership mean. But I think starting off with saying no to some of the work that you're given and really assessing if it's going to make an impact and taking control of your pipeline of work.
Okay, amazing. So we're going to shift into advice on communication and mindset and confidence. We're going to start with communication tips. Sarah, what would you say to someone who is wanting to know how they can communicate more effectively and just be more impressive and impactful when they speak?
The big thing that I did to take up more space during meetings, which I would recommend to others, would be to work through your wobbles. Prior to the academy, when I would speak up in meetings, my face would get red because usually I was in a room full of men and they were all looking at me all of a sudden because I was talking and I was terrified. It scared me so much to have everybody looking at me. But this led to me not communicating effectively and letting my red face wobble win. And that was not a good stance to have. So now my face still gets red, though it's not all the time. But when it does, I just keep going. I don't even give it a moment's thought. And I take the time to take up the space needed to communicate my thoughts effectively. And I don't really care if my face is red or not.
Oh my gosh. Your answer is just making me so happy. When you said, I don't really care if my face is red or not, that just filled me with so much joy. And just for anyone listening, a wobble is a word that we use in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. And it just refers to any moment where like you fumble or something goes kind of wrong. And a lot of what we talk about is recovering and bouncing back and not spiraling down just because you had one moment of imperfection or something tricky came up. So I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. How do you feel, Colette? Do you want to jump in?
I give myself a prep talk prior to meetings to motivate myself to get me in a certain mindset. Sort of like when you get into an athletic game, you give yourself, you can do it. You know, you're invited to the meeting. I have a right to be at the meeting. I got a seat at the table. I can contribute and I'm going to give it my best shot. And then I just say, go for it. And I put it out there.
I love that. And one way that I often think about mindset work is it's not always about believing something new about ourselves. Sometimes it's just remembering the beliefs about ourselves that we keep forgetting. And it's stopping to remember that we do, on some level, believe that we are capable. And so it can be so powerful to just have that moment to say, hold on, like, what do I know is true about myself that could make me feel more powerful coming into this meeting or conversation? How about you, Jane?
I think what's really important is energy. So the mindset you bring to your day, to your meeting, to your conversation affects how you show up. And when you're feeling small, your energy is small. And when you're feeling confident, your energy is big and your voice is big. And something I'm definitely working on because I have a voice that's really small. But I also really like the certainty scale that we learned about in the course and pausing and noticing how certain do I sound right now to my audience and really assessing that and trying to move up the scale. So it's really about owning the energy, my voice, tone, body language, and the certainty behind what you say. And that can project a stronger presence. And people are more likely to listen and engage with you when you have that strong presence.
What if someone is thinking like, okay, I want to sound powerful and certain, but like, what do I do if a wave of doubt comes over me?
Gosh, I think you just need to quiet down. I know it's easier said than done, but it's almost like telling yourself, stop it and go back to the big energy that you set at the beginning of the meeting that you committed to bring.
The reason I asked you that, it's similar to what Sarah was saying with wobbles. It's really important for us to realize that even if we have a moment where things aren't going in an ideal way, that's not the end, right? That's just a moment and we will either spiral more deeply into it or we'll bounce back from it. And as soon as we realize that we can bounce back from it and that it's totally okay for us to have these wobbly moments, we can still recover. Things become a lot less stressful because we don't really need everything to go as perfectly as we think it needs to go. Okay, we're going to move to the next question. So Colette, what is one mindset tip you can share to help someone feel more confident?
One mindset shift that I learned at the Academy that really resonated with me was the U 2.0. It's really focusing on who you want to be. I really hadn't thought about my own vision of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up in my working life. So it really changed my whole thought process. Just looking at, hey, I can be more, I can do more, and I want to do more. I want to be a leader. I want to be a thought leader. I want people to listen to me and really say, that's a great idea. And she's really thought that through. So I've really been trying to focus on that's where I want to end up at my career and even at outside my professional life and my family life too.
Thank you for sharing that, Colette. How about you, Jane? What is one mindset tip you can share to help someone feel more confident?
We're all really often stressed about, how you're speaking, how you might be wrong, how you look, how you're being perceived. But it's shifting that focus away from yourself and putting it on others and just focusing on how can I help them do their job and drive results? And that takes the pressure off yourself completely. And the thing is, with a lot of self-doubt and criticism, it's just our own perceived reality. And similar to what I said before, when this happens, I tell myself, this is not real. I am making this up. And that helps me shift my perspective and feel more confident and return back to neutral.
And when we are making it up, it can feel really real. Like in the moment, it can feel like, no, I am not making this up. This is what is happening. And it can take work to get to that point where we can recognize it. But when we can, things really, really can start to change. So I love that. Amazing. So Sarah, what would be your best tip for your best mindset tip for someone who wants to feel more confident?
For me, I think it would be remember to just give yourself some grace. You'll have really strong days and days when things don't go well, and that's okay. And just as one bad day doesn't define who you are, one bad meeting doesn't define your career. So take a moment and just forgive yourself or look inside and say, it's okay, and realize that this isn't going to impact the rest of your life, and figure out where you're going to head next and make it what you envision yourself being instead.
These are so good. Okay, last question before we pivot to the closing questions. I'll see which of you want to answer this one. Whoever wants to answer it can answer it. But if someone is listening to this and they're struggling with self-doubt or they're feeling really stuck, what would you want to say to that person? Do you want to go, Colette?
Yeah, I can do that. First of all, I tell them that you're not alone. Everybody struggles with self-doubt at some point in their career. I don't know anyone I work with that hasn't had self-doubt. What I'd suggest to them is seek out your mentors or your trusted family members, trusted friends, colleagues. Talk to them. It might be hard because you're going to have to put out your vulnerabilities to them. But to me, if you're telling them what you're struggling with, they're trusted individuals to you, they're going to want to help you. And since they most likely aren't emotionally tied to what your challenge is, they can give you a different perspective that could be really helpful for you. And it can guide you in getting out of that self-doubt and give you a totally different outlook.
Love it. How about you, Sarah?
I think if you're feeling stuck, as Colette said, you're not alone. Everybody gets to that point sooner or later in their career. My advice would be stop and write out a plan of where you are and where you want to go, and figure out how to close that gap. Then reach out to those people around you, as Colette mentioned, your mentor, people that are in that role that you want, and identify those characteristics or skills that you need to grow in order to get to that role one day, and start working on it. And I think once you start doing that, you'll realize that you won't feel stuck anymore. You feel like you're going somewhere and ultimately reaching that goal that you have in mind.
I love that so much. Okay, this is an open-ended question. Does anyone have any other reflections or takeaways from the Academy that we haven't talked about that you want to share?
I have one. I totally underestimated the power of sharing your thoughts and experiences with those around you. My favorite part of the week when I was in the Academy was seeing all my friends and hearing their challenges and their wins, and hearing their stories and watching them all grow and learn. It was so powerful, and it gave me the strength and courage to really try to do the same. So I want to encourage everybody out there to find a group of women that you can do this with. It may sound really scary. I think we were all scared when we first started the course. We didn't speak too much, but then once we got into it and got comfortable and realized the power of doing that, we all would jump in, and it was really an amazing experience.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I think we all definitely saw you growing through doing that. It was very noticeable and it was felt by all. And I'm just glad to hear that it felt so supportive for you to have that community.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to miss everybody.
Yeah, I do.
Keep in contact.
Mm-hmm.
I can add something too. Similar to Sarah, though. For me, my takeaway was, it really helped me focus on me and how I can improve myself. And it was so encouraging to listen to the other women in the group and their challenges and hearing how they were approaching their self to tackle that challenge inspired me to be better. And I just saw how much improvement they were doing with their stories and that power that Sarah mentioned of the group. It just helped me tremendously. I learned so much. I'm still applying a lot of it that I learned.
It's so true. It's like a weekly therapy session for me, at least.
Yeah.
Talking about our challenges, listening to it, and just you kind of have that insight into how we think and feel and adapting to that. So that was a great, weekly time to get together. But for me, I'm going to kind of pivot to more of a practical thing. And for me, I talked a lot about mindset and communication, but a lot of the takeaways was the practical advice that we received on, how to set up a meeting so that everyone's invested, how to be clear in your communication, what it really means to be assertive, and how to disagree and find solutions with everyone. And it's interesting that these are things that aren't often taught ever. And they're just skills you pick up along the way in the corporate world. So it's great that we get to learn this and are exposed to this in the academy. And, some people learn it faster than others, or some people are more natural than others in picking it up. And these are things that are key to leadership.
So happy to hear all of those things. Thank you all for sharing that. And now we have our final closing questions. So I always end with these questions. So we'll start with you, Colette, for the first of the closing questions. So the podcast is called The Art of Speaking Up. What does the art of speaking up mean to you?
For me, it's about having the confidence with myself to express my thoughts, my opinions, my ideas, my perspectives in any situation with my family, with my work family, with my friends, with colleagues. It really is about being comfortable with myself to speak up, say what I want to say it in my own words, and be happy that I was able to be part of a conversation.
Oh, so powerful. How about you, Sarah? What does the art of speaking up mean to you?
Similar to Colette, it's really empowerment. It empowers you to share your thoughts and who you are. And by doing this, you ultimately become your best self, and you can contribute more in your personal life and in business.
Amazing. And how about you, Jane? What does the art of speaking up mean to you?
It's really an art. It's not just speaking up. It's about what you say and how you say it that makes the biggest difference. First, you need the courage to speak up, which is hard for a lot of us. Then you need to communicate effectively. Then you need to communicate persuasively. There's just so much to it. And with all the internal factors happening with your mindset and external factors at play, it's a complex juggling act to speak up in the corporate world and actually feel heard. And I really think this is the number one skill to have, to develop. And it's an art to master for your career.
Okay, so we're going to do the final question. So some context for the final question. I started the Art of Speaking Up podcast a while ago because I wanted to speak to women who were struggling to believe in themselves, because I really experienced that in my corporate career, like intense self-doubt, intense imposter syndrome. And I really wanted to spread a message that would help women believe in themselves more and help them remember how talented and capable they are. So for this last question, I'm going to give each of you a chance to share whatever you would want to share to someone who is listening on the other end, who is maybe having a tough day or struggling with self-doubt and is looking to feel re-inspired and re-motivated and to believe in themselves once again. So we'll start with you again, Colette. What would you want to share as just closing words to that person?
If at first you don't succeed, try again. You can persevere. You're resilient in the face of challenges. Get back up on that horse when you fall off and believe in yourself that you can accomplish those goals. And the biggest thing to me after all this is it's about investing in yourself to be who you want to be.
So good. Thank you for sharing that, Colette. We'll go to you, Jane, to share whatever you would want to close out with.
Yeah, one quote that I really like is change your thoughts and you change your world. Changing the way you think and your story you tell yourself can really transform your life and open doors in every part of your life, not just at work. And lastly, if you are a doer, excelling at your job, but you're still feeling stuck, now is the moment to step into the leadership spotlight.
How about you, Sarah?
For me, it's from The Wizard of Oz. You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. So during the academy, I took a cruise to Alaska with my mom. And she and I have always been close, and I would share a lot of my struggles with her, especially over the last few years. When we got in the cabin, she gave me this notebook, and it had that quote on the cover. And I think she wanted to remind me of who I was and how capable I am. So just as everyone listening to this is, you have the power to be and do what you want. But just sometimes we need a reminder, a wizard maybe, or a mom or an academy to help us find our strength and power again.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's interview, and a big, warm, heartfelt thank you to Colette, Jane, and Sarah for so courageously coming on the show, sharing their stories, and also so generously sharing their tips and wisdom for building confidence without having to be driven by pressure and perfectionism. This interview made me tear up, and I think one of the reasons that happened is because it spoke so directly to the parts within me, and I hope the parts within you, the listener, that know deep down inside that we are fully capable of evolving into the leaders that we want to be. So I just want to reiterate my thanks to these three incredible women. I am so grateful to have gotten to do this interview, and I'm so grateful to you, the listener, for sticking around with us through the end. If you are at a point where you're looking for support, community, and you want that clear step-by-step process to guide your confidence-building journey and learn to speak like a powerful leader, I would love to invite you to join me in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. This is my signature program where I teach you how to build genuine confidence that actually lasts, and I teach you how to speak like a leader so you can stand out and develop a reputation as someone who is highly capable and credible. The absolute best way to join me in this program is to click the link in the show notes and add yourself to the waitlist. Many of the cohorts sell out in advance, and if you're on the waitlist, that ensures that you are going to get the first opportunity to find out when the next cohort is open and to secure your spot in that cohort. I will drop the link in the show notes, or you can visit jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to this conversation, and I am excited to catch you next week in the next episode. Have an amazing day. Bye.